Welcome back, everyone. Next, we have Regen BioPharma Inc. It trades on the OTC Pink sheets under the symbol RGBP. It's a biotech company focused on developing innovative treatments using autologous cell therapies, RNA and DNA-based immunotherapy, and small molecules in the immune-oncology and autoimmune disease space. Happy to welcome President and CEO David Koos and Harry Lander, Senior Scientific Consultant. Welcome to the conference, gentlemen. How are you doing today?
Excellent. Well, good to see you out here.
Nice to see you, and the floor is yours. Call me back when you're ready for questions.
Perfect. So I'm going to do something non-traditional here, in as much as I feel obligated to shout out to the firefighters and first responders in LA. I think it's a tireless job and very important. And they're doing a great work up there. That being said, I'm going to delve into a number of topics today. I want to cover the Reg A offering, the filing of the Form 15 with the SEC, alternative reporting on the OTC markets and what that means, and where we sit with the CRO. And then at the end, we'll take questions. That being said, if you have questions, make sure you get them in right away so that we can address as many of them as we have time for. So one thing that came up today is that we just were issued a notice, well, it's called a notice of allowance, meaning that we have a patent that's been cleared. And I'm excited about that. I think Harry's excited about that. While it doesn't pertain to Heme Accelerate, it does pertain to NR2F6 and everything we have going there. Harry, can you kind of give us a quick thumbnail on the significance of this patent?
Yeah, no, it's great because it's a utility patent. In other words, we've actually gotten allowance on multiple chemical structures that we did research on years ago as inhibitors or activators of NR2F6. That is a gene that's involved in regulating the immune system and is potentially a great target for small molecules acting as checkpoint inhibitors or immune activators. So that's always very exciting because, once a structure like that is patented, it's truly protected, and as NR2F6 continues to gain interest in big pharma, hopefully those structures will be useful to either us or another group.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. That's a kind of a surprise out of left field. We weren't expecting to get that approved right away, but here it is. So that's good. Now, I know I've gotten quite a bit of correspondence with shareholders about various things. I think there's a lot of concern over the filing of the Form 15 for Regen and the yield sign that has been up on our stock. So I'll address that issue first. The yield sign, what that means is we've gone from being fully reporting on the SEC, with the SEC, to we're transitioning to alternative reporting on OTC markets. We have cleared all the hurdles. We just got the invoice for the privilege of utilizing their platform, which we're taking care of today, and we expect that yield sign will disappear over the next couple of days when we've filed our annual report. So that's exciting news. I know it's been very upsetting for people to see a yield sign because it's uncertain what that means. But today, we've jumped through all the hurdles. We don't see anything left to get in the way of us finalizing everything with OTC markets. So we expect to be fully reporting under their umbrella over the next few days. And then that yield sign should go away. Let's see. So the Form 15, basically you file that when you want to cease being fully reporting with the SEC. And you have to do that before you can be fully reporting with OTC markets. So it's sort of a catch-22. We filed the Form 15, and then boom, we got hit with the yield sign for lack of current information. All that is prepared and ready to file as soon as we're cleared with OTC markets. I think we're moving in a direction. The reasoning behind the filing of the Form 15 is going to cost me about $200,000 to re-audit audits that were already done by our previous auditor, but he was kicked out of the PCAOB. Hence, any new auditor that came in wanted to go back quite a ways, and it amounts to a very large bill, anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000. And we can accomplish everything we need to much cheaper by being fully reporting on the OTC markets. And once we've got all this squared away with the contract research organization, so that we're moving things forward that way, we'll look into going back onto the SEC as a fully reporting company there. So it's not an either or indefinitely, but near term it's going to be OTC markets, and then longer term we fully expect to be back up on the SEC's website. So I think that's a good place to be. The Reg A offering. That's so we have cleared all the comments with the SEC on our Reg A. We have been qualified by the SEC, and now we have been busy qualifying the offering in the various states that we have people that have indicated interest in participating. We have to qualify it. We either have to qualify the offering, or we have to have an exemption from qualification in order to take in money from states or from investors in states that wish to participate. That being said, we're now in a position where we've got qualifications on a number of states with that represent investors that are very much interested. So we're now ready to, I think, open the door and get busy taking in money from investors that wish to participate. Now, it's interesting. I've developed an interesting approach to this. You could either go with selling the Reg A shares to an institution, but those shares, by and large, are going to get rolled back out into the market. Now, the flip side of the coin is we have a lot of very loyal shareholders in Regen, and it would be nice to see their participation in the Reg A offering, because I'm not sitting here worried about them getting the stock and then turning around and blowing it out. They're getting the stock at a discount, and I think that being said, they're dollar cost averaging their positions, and that looks good. So I think that the key thing is we want to raise the money to get this clinical phase 1 off the burner and into the pan. And that's really what this is all about. So I think that that moving things along, I mean, we can do it institutionally, but I'd much prefer to see our shareholders participate and get the discount in the price. So if there's interested parties in participating in the Reg A offering, contact me. We can discuss whether you're qualified or not qualified to participate. We'll move that along. That's an interesting situation to be in. I've had quite a few shareholders already that have indicated that they want to participate. So it's exciting. Now, I know that we had one person that had several questions pertaining to the Reg A. And let me see if I can pull up his questions. Here we go. Okay, so he's asking how much money has been raised by the Reg A to this point. Well, I kind of addressed that issue already by saying the steps that you go through, you have to get the Reg A offering qualified with the SEC. Then you have to qualify it in the state that the investor lives in, and then you can take money in for the investment. Now, that means that basically we've got quite a few people that are interested. They're just waiting for me to tell them that we're qualified in the state that they're domiciled. That being said, how much money do we expect to raise with the Reg A before closing? Well, the target number for the clinical phase 1 is $550,000. So we need to close this out to get close to that number. Maybe a little short, but the main idea is that we can get the financing to cover the phase 1 clinical trials. Once we get through that, we expect to modify our IND to reflect this idea that it has, Heme has purposes beyond its original intent, and that is to mitigate the side effects of chemotherapy. Now, we briefly mentioned that last time, and just to bring it back up, Harry, what do you see as being the major things that Heme can help with?
I think, and it's also worth pointing out that the FDA just approved, maybe in the last now, I don't know if it's 4 weeks or 6 weeks, the very first mesenchymal stem cell drug. So it's for GVHD, graft versus host disease. So that's kind of a big deal in the field because the FDA has historically been very, I don't know about cautious, but it's the FDA. But now they've approved the very first one, so that's really good news for the field. So your question, David, was in terms of other indications for Heme.
Well, no. What I'm looking at is how is it that Heme will impact chemotherapy side effects?
Yeah. So chemotherapy is tough, right? And so there are people who do okay, and there's a good proportion of people who not do well, and they have to take less of the chemo, and therefore it's less effective. This is toxic stuff, right? So having a drug like Accelerate replenishing and protecting your bone marrow should be a very powerful drug. It's a great indication, and I think it makes a lot of sense to expand once we get our phase 1 going. We can start talks with the FDA about expanding that into that indication.
Perfect. Okay. Let's see. So another question is how much money is needed to do phase 1 clinical trials? Well, that's going to be somewhere, about $550,000?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So now, if the Reg A really is 10 million shares at 4 cents, that's $400,000. So there's $150,000 shortfall between what we're raising and what it's going to cost. But as you get further into it, there are numerous ways to make up that shortfall. That's not the worry. The worry is making sure that we can get to phase 1 as quickly as possible, so that once we get through phase 1, then we can look at the modification of the IND to address chemotherapy side effects. That's a safe statement.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Now, when do we expect the phase 1 trials to commence? Well, we think we're going to initiate it sometime in the first quarter, assuming all goes well with the Reg A filing, and we don't have any issues in that direction. So the goal really is you go in, you've got to do all sorts of things like recruiting participants, correct? And then moving forward with identifying key members of the team that's going to do the research. And I think that all will take time. We figured that we need to allocate about a year for the trial?
Yeah. The CRO indicated a year. I suspect it'll take maybe a few months longer, but plus or minus, yeah.
Yeah, somewhere around that neighborhood. Okay. So that's really how long we're looking at it. We're budgeting about roughly a year. If the recruiting goes really well for the participants, it could be less. If we're having a harder time finding, all the participants we need, it could be a little bit more. But that's not atypical. That's about what you expect in a phase 1 trial. Now, the purpose of a phase 1 trial is really to determine the safety of what you're using as a therapeutic. So you don't want to kill the host. You want to make sure that it doesn't have any negative side effects that could compromise the participant's health in any way. Or if there is something that is a side effect, you've identified what it is and whether it's meaningful. So I think that's really. I find this very, very exciting where we're sitting right now, because we're on the cusp of becoming a clinical phase biotech company, which means that we're moving forward out of the realm of okay, we've done this research in this area, this research in that area. This is sort of like, okay, well, what I want to be when I grow up is I want to be a clinical phase company working in clinical phase research that's leading to a therapeutic that is going to be not only beneficial to a segment of the population that is treated, but it opens doors to expansion into other areas that could also benefit from phase or from this therapeutic. So I'm very excited about that. I think, let me just go back up here 1 second. Now, what does, let me address the issue of alternative reporting for a second. So nowadays you have two choices. You can report your quarterlies and annual financials either with the SEC, and that's publicly disseminated, or you can report them on the OTC markets, and that's publicly disseminated. There's a huge cost factor differential. The financials do not have to be PCAOB audited if they're reported on OTC markets. It doesn't mean that they don't have to be audited, but they can be. The big issue, though, is that you're saving the expense of being SEC compliant, and still making the company as transparent as possible so that shareholders have a feeling that they know what's going on, and that everything is laid out cleanly in front of them, so they can make a decision as to how much they want to be a shareholder, or if they want to be a shareholder, or if they want to expand their shareholdings. I apologize, I have a little sinus thing going on this morning. So the goal with alternative reporting, if resources can be better allocated to, in our case, the contract research organization, as opposed to spending it on reporting at the SEC level, then at least near term, it makes a lot of sense to move us down the road. Because once we get to the point that we've actually got this thing through phase 1, I expect that we're going to have a lot of interest from other biopharma companies that are interested in that area as well, where they could see a need or a desire to partner with us. Those are all exciting things to look forward to. And we're positioning ourselves in a good place to be able to do that in the future. I think, I'm looking down at my watch and I'm seeing that we're running tight on time in terms of being able to address any questions that are out there. So why don't I use that as a stopping point for my side of the presentation, and let's take questions.
All right. You did answer many of these questions, so great job with that, but a few more that you might not have answered. One, and forgive me if you did address these, but are you in talks with investors that have showed interest in investing in this offering? And if so, how much per investor on average?
Well, since we're doing what's called kind of a soft circle until we get qualified in the particular state that investor or entity resides. So I would say that I'm comfortable that over the next several months, we're going to close this thing out probably pretty quickly.
And a question regarding the CAR T cells. Our viewer says you used to be very hopeful about it, but can't you develop it concurrently with Hema-Accelerate?
Well, we could. Resources right now are scarce because we're going to have to spend a lot of money on clinical phases for Hema-Accelerate. once we get through that, or as funds become available, we'll go back and revisit the CAR T cells as well.
And Adam asks, how does Regen plan to commercialize its therapies, and are there partnerships or licensing agreements in place?
Right now, there are no partnerships or licensing agreements in place on the Heme Accelerate, but that is not surprising. You have to get through clinical phase 1 and maybe into clinical phase 2 before you're going to attract big pharma or large biotech companies that see the opportunity. You can say that you know, I can pitch 100 miles an hour, but until you actually throw that first fastball, you haven't proven anything.
Absolutely. And you mentioned it, but if you can explain again the 8K filing, and if you can add the dividends, dissolution, merger, conversion, any of those details.
Wow, it's a kind of omnibus question. Okay, so the goal, first off on the stock dividend, I think I already expressed previously that it became apparent to me that my decision to do a 1 for 1,500 share reverse was a mistake. I've owned that. My fault. Trying to correct it. So we did the dividends to create liquidity for shareholders in the marketplace and to reduce their cost basis in the stock. So that's step 1. Me trying to fix things. It's simple. It was my mistake. I listened to somebody who I shouldn't have and learned from it. I'm sorry that you know, it was a costly mistake. Now, let's see, what were the other parts to that question?
Just wanting to know the dissolution, merger, and conversion details.
Okay, merger. Not aware that we're doing any merger. So I think that dissolution, we're not doing any sorts of divestiture or any of that nature. Right now, really, the thing that has taken place is that we've issued out shares to make the marketplace more liquid. And that's for the benefit of the shareholders. It doesn't really do anything for me, other than the fact that I get less emails of people complaining and yelling and screaming and things of that nature, that they've got more stock and a lower cost basis. So that was the goal of the dividend distribution.
And maybe you can close on this question. How does the company plan to scale up its research efforts to accelerate the development timeline?
Well, I think let's see, the simple way to explain this is that once we get into phase 2 and we've added the indication of chemotherapy to Heme Accelerate, that represents the multi-billion-dollar market niche. So moving into that phase will attract a great deal of capital, which will then provide the ability to finance all the research that we'd like to do in NR206, CAR T, excuse me, and other areas.
Wonderful. Well, do you guys have any closing remarks for our viewers today?
I know it's been a long haul, but the fact that we're this close to getting Heme Accelerate into the clinic, I'm extremely excited and enthusiastic, and I think it will reward your patience.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right.
We will see you again real soon.
Yep, appreciate it.
All right, everyone, stay with
Bye.
us. We'll be right back.